We are Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to do our power rankings heading into week 11 of the college football season. And Blake, let's start as we always do in the misery tier. Vanderbilt holding down 14 as it has all year. Commodores lost by 11 to South Carolina this weekend. And then two teams who will settle the matter on the field of who is worse in Auburn and Texas A&M. Could you imagine before the season if you told us you'd have A&M at 12? Now, I outlined a way that could go sideways, which it did. But A&M staring down maybe a 3 to 4 win season, depending on how things go from here. Anyway, we've got A&M at 13, Auburn at 12, but that game will be played in Auburn this week and settle that once and for all, I guess.
Wow, A&M dropping all the way to 13. I mean, again, for my individual rankings, as always, these are staff composite rankings, everyone. These aren't just Chris and I. I had them at 12, but it's like just to see them at 13 in our staff composite rankings, that's something, isn't it? But like you said, these two will be decided. I think it's safe to say the winner's not moving any further up, probably. My guess, I think both these teams are probably staying in these two spots next week, no matter what happens. So yeah, not an ideal place to be in for A&M. It's easily the most disappointing team in terms of where we had them to start the season and where they are now. And like you said, just still something to play for on both sides, but man, it's something to kind of look at them here grouped into the same tier as Vanderbilt, who continues its losing streak. So.
Okay, this is where we get into the tier of murkiness. We start as we count down backwards. South Carolina at 11. The Gamecocks, of course, got to win. They've been up and down. Special teams and turnovers predicate a lot of how those games go. Right in front of Carolina is a sneaky good Missouri team that just can't catch a break. These two teams played a couple weeks ago. That seems like the right order here, given that Missouri won that game.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember what the highest. I would assume this is the highest we've had in Missouri this season.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure. I know it's the highest I put them in mine. So yeah, I mean, I think it's, even coming off a loss, like we said, Missouri's just they've been right there in pretty much every game they played in over the past however long now, and certainly a couple plays here or there changed the entire complexion of their season, perhaps. But yeah, I think it's right for them to be ahead, and I know everyone, as we always say, like you can look at the overall record and SEC record and say, well, this team should be here and this team. This isn't just us, spouting off the standings. It's telling you who we think are the better teams at this point. And I think that, again, it all comes down to individual rankings, and when you can put them all together, I think it's, I would put Missouri ahead of South Carolina right now, just because I think that, there's been a bit more consistency, even if the losses have been there. That they've been a pretty consistent team. They've had a chance to be right there in all their games, and had a chance against Kentucky too, just couldn't pull it out. So
another place where we don't have a lot of clarity coming up, the next two teams, we've got Arkansas at 9, Florida at 8. I probably would have flipped that.
I think I would have too.
Arkansas coming off a disappointing loss, but to a good Liberty team. And frankly, I thought the Hogs got screwed on a call late in the game on the KJ Jefferson play, which looked like a 2-point conversion that wasn't in any ways. It goes down in the books as a loss. Florida getting a win at A&M, looking a little better every week. Neither team much on defense, but those offenses have been fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had Arkansas at 8, Florida at 9 in my individual rankings. I think that's but again, we're splitting hairs on a lot of this at this point. I mean, like I said, this is kind of that range where you look at these two teams. Arkansas had their chances against Liberty, couldn't pull it off. I said in the Florida-South Carolina game preview this week, I think that Florida's looked a little better than people think, maybe if you actually, watch them play, but their defense is still been an issue. So obviously that's a big game for both teams, Florida and South Carolina, in that one. So yeah, I mean, look, like we said, you're kind of splitting hairs here, I think, when you get to this range. But I slotted Arkansas ahead of Florida, but how big is that? I mean, no, it's not a dramatic difference, I don't think.
Okay, next team in our power rankings tier. This is lower than where they've been most of the year, but it seems like Kentucky has really settled in as a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. We have talked about Kentucky's proclivity for playing close games, and the Wildcats won one of those in what about a 40-mile-an-hour wind against Missouri on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I just think with Kentucky at this point, I mean, obviously they got a chance to continue to jump up, just given the fact that they do get a game against Georgia here coming up soon. If they win that one, certainly they can move up. But it's like beyond that, I don't know how much they're going to move up with a win over Vanderbilt. Um, those kind of things. I think they have kind of settled in this kind of range now for us. And again, we'll probably be there the rest of the season, unless they were to pull off the upset against Georgia.
Okay, before we get to the top half of our rankings where things are clearing up a bit, we want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, Stakes. That's Stakes. Predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Head to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Again, this is not a betting app. It's a predictions app. So it is free to play, free to join, and you can win stuff. What's not to like? So go to Stakes today and help out the folks who help us the most. Number 6 in the countdown, Mississippi State, which got a win over Auburn, hung on for dear life, I guess, at the end of that one. State's been solid all year, played a brutal schedule, and pretty good on both sides of the ball. Not great on either, but 6 seems pretty appropriate given who's ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's nowhere else to put them.
Yeah,
I don't think you can't put them in front of the teams that are in front of them. I think if you want to make the argument that Kentucky beat Mississippi State, I assume you could go with that. And would I have a huge qualm? Probably not. I mean, it's just again, like I said, we're in that range now where you look at Mississippi State's losses, right? And I mean, all 3 of them at LSU, at Kentucky, at Alabama, all 3 on the road, didn't necessarily play well in any of those games. I didn't think. So that's something that certainly stands out. Perhaps, especially when you're given the one road game they have left on their schedule, which is going to be at Ole Miss to end the season. But I think I would probably still slot the Bulldogs ahead of Kentucky maybe right now. I think Kentucky's loss to Tennessee it was such a jarring thing that I think just kind of it just threw you off a bit in terms of kind of what your expectations were moving forward. And so, I'm okay with this one right here with the Bulldogs.
Okay, at 4 and 5 in that order, Alabama and Ole Miss. And again, these teams will settle it this weekend in Oxford. Ole Miss has lost 1 game, has also played probably the league's easiest schedule to date. Alabama's had a brutal road schedule that continues again this week in Oxford.
Yeah, I don't think we should overlook the fact that Alabama is number 4 in our rankings. Like, it's interesting to think about, right? Like that Alabama is at 4, but here they are because they've now lost a couple games. And again, I don't think there's anywhere else to put them. So usually we're used to having the discussion of Bama 1 or 2, but here they are at 4. And certainly going to need a little help, I think, to move up in our rankings the rest of the way, right? Because we've seen kind of the outcomes of the games they played against the 2 teams in front of them. Lost very close games, thrilling, 2 of the best games of the year against Tennessee and LSU. But here they are, and like you said, the winner for this next spot here, barring losses from the top 3, will be at 4 next week, and the loser probably be at 5 next week, and that's probably your order here for Alabama and Ole Miss.
Well, and to the top 3, there's really no other order to put these in given the on-field results. LSU 3, Tennessee 2, Georgia 1. All 3 teams have a shot at the college football playoff in what has just been a phenomenally fun SEC season to watch.
Yeah, again, that's what we said. I think you look at all 3 of these. LSU, their biggest win of the season, beating Alabama, and just a thriller, and now control their destiny in the SEC West. So obviously going to need some big wins to get there, but they are sitting in a really good spot, even with 2 losses. I keep saying if LSU wins the SEC title, they will be in the college football playoff. Don't listen to the 2-loss talk and all that. They will be there at that point. And I think, you look at their setup, Tennessee, obviously disappointing, I think, to lose at Georgia the way they did, for that to not be a more competitive game from start to finish. But in the grand scheme of things, Chris, it's still only 1 loss to the number 1 team in the country. And I think that still puts you in a spot where you've got a ton to play for if you're Tennessee the rest of the way. Because again, you need a lot of help to be able to get to the SEC championship game. But if you have one loss, Georgia gets there, they continue on their path. It certainly makes for more interesting discussion, perhaps in the playoff conversation. But we will see what that looks like once we get there, because you got to win more games. And for Georgia, just a dominant, just they showed off how good they can be against Tennessee. And again, it's a team that it's so interesting, isn't it? Because we came into the year saying, man, this may be one of those Georgia teams that may not just be what they were last year, right? It's hard to compare, and they got to replace guys, and maybe it takes a little while to get going. But even if they have had some of those, possessions where you're just like, man, that does not look like the old Georgia, they still show that throughout a 4-quarter game, they're still unbeaten, and yeah, are the top dog once again here in the SEC.
Yeah, fun fact about Georgia, and we mentioned this on the live stream last night. Probably most people wouldn't guess it, but Georgia averaging more yards per play than any team in the league. And, of course, that defense is hands down the best in the league. I think this has been our easiest, and look, the on-field results helped us, but I think this has been our easiest number one pick all year.
Oh, yeah, I think for sure. Because there were those times, right, where we're swapping Alabama to one, and because you're like, well, Georgia didn't look great against Kent State and then Missouri, but now, I mean, what have they done since then, right? I mean, they've beaten Auburn 42-10, Vanderbilt 55-0, Florida 42-20, Tennessee 27-13. So yeah, the Bulldogs, rightful owners of that number one spot here, and like we said, a lot to play for both Tennessee, LSU here in our top three.
Yeah, the teams that haven't moved at all, Vandy's been 14 all year, every week. And I don't know that Ole Miss has budged one more from the 5 spot we've got it in at the moment.
Has Vandy
I think it's been as high as 4. Vandy's been 14 every week.
Okay. I couldn't remember because I feel like maybe there were weeks where somebody may have moved Missouri. That would have been like the very start of the season, though, because I think, remember, that's when again, we're talking about something that I know it's not a real hot topic of conversation, but I'm curious about those kind of things because I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably right. So, yeah, I mean, it's good that teams are playing each other, these top teams, especially because like you said, you get a lot more clarity at the top, although at the bottom, I think you've got a little bit more clarity now too, since we are going into week 11 here. You've just seen enough of a sample size, I think, to know what you're getting from a lot of these teams, although not every team. As we said, there's been some inconsistency with some of these teams.
I can't remember LSU. I feel like we've had the Tigers around 8 or 9 at different points this season, and they're at 3 now. Tennessee, I think, I don't know that Tennessee's moved.
They've been top 5 all year. Yeah,
top 5, if not top 3 or 4.
Because we had Arkansas at 3 for a long time, and then they started their going in the opposite direction, and
injury laden descent
started moving up. Yeah. Kentucky was there for a while. They've dropped into kind of that middle range now. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, those teams at the bottom, for teams like Auburn, Vanderbilt, Missouri, I mean, even South Carolina, even with the win over Kentucky and then A&M, like they haven't moved up a ton. And yeah, so I think we've kind of got a good range on where teams have settled at this point.
If you like your power rankings, we've got those for hoops too. Best way to get those and everything else is hit that subscribe button so you can see everything in our channel. We preview every single game involving SEC football teams this year. Basketball starts tonight as we're doing this Monday morning. We will be hitting that really hard all year, just as we did last year. And baseball. When baseball season rolls around, we'll be here for you too. Anyway, he's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. Thank you to Steaks for sponsoring our channel. We'll see you again soon.